Diane Corcoran, researcher of near-death experiences, interviews Mr. Glenn Brymer, who in 1971 was involved in an accident during military maneuvers. Repeatedly crushed between a stone wall and a military transport, his arm was completely torn from his body. Mr. Brymer picks up the story.
Laid me down on the ground. I remember looking up and seeing Specialist Canfield, the man who'd been driving the truck, get out of the truck and come around to the back. Specialist O'Hara screamed at him, "You killed him." And he started walking in circles. By this time I was aware, since there was so much action going on during this missile alert, and when this happened, everybody began to congregate on me.
Were you still conscious at that time?
Oh yeah, I was conscious of all of it happening. I realized at this point that, I'd been hurt serious. I could feel the blood flowing a lot. A very odd thing happened at this point. As I was laying there and everybody is working in emergency, I noticed this cloud start to come over me, and it was like it was gray with little black and white checkers in it. And instinctively I knew that if this cloud completed the horizon, that I would die. I couldn't figure out what it was, and then my training took over, and I realized that this must be shock. I realized that my heartbeat was extremely rapid, so I slowed my heartbeat down, and I realized my breathing was extremely rapid. I slowed it down. I realized the blood was, I could feel the blood flowing quite freely. So I tried to staunch the flow of blood going to my left shoulder. While this was going on, when I came back, I realized the cloud had gone away. And it was like an aperture opening. The minute it went away and disappeared, everything got extremely crystal clear and very sharp and bright. About this time, my left arm fell off of my chest and hit the floor. Specialist Davis says his arm's fallen off. What do I do? The medic started to turn around, and he said, well, pick his arm back up and put it, give it back to him. So he did, and I cradled it on my chest. Time kind of stopped at this point. It kind of fell away, and I did an internal dialogue, I would say. And I didn't want to just call on God and just say, God help me, I want to live. But that's the way it kind of came out. But in the middle of all of this, I started to think, who am I to call on God? What have I done? What is so special of me? But I had no choice. I had to say this. So I said, well, God, I'm dying, and I need help. And I just need your help. It was at this point, Diane, where in the blink of an eye, everything just disappeared. All the pain was gone. The fear was gone. And I was like being in a big void. And this voice was in me. And it was a voice like your grandfather or your favorite uncle or your father, somebody that cared for you very much. It was a male voice. And the voice said, you don't die, Glenn. And I remember saying, I don't understand. And the voice said, you don't die, you continue. And I said, I still don't understand. And the voice says, I know you don't understand. So here's this, will help you. And it was like I was conscious of being in space, in a big void, floating. I wasn't conscious of being in a body or anything. And far off at a distance was a very pinpoint of bright light. And it's like I was flying towards it through space. And it got rapidly larger. And as I got closer to it, it became a huge burst of light. It was brilliant, just brilliant. Blue, white, sparkling, and it filled up my entire vision, and it was almost like I was going to go into it. And just as it filled my vision and I got very close to it, I stopped, and it opened up. And it's at this point, Diane, that it's very hard to try to tell what happened, because it's like seeing a video movie where you see 10,000 images in a split second. I was shown the reason why I didn't have to fear dying, and I understood why you do not die. Having seen this, I pulled away, and it closed and receded, and I came back through space.
Kind of the same way you came in?
Yeah, the same way, moving back. And this voice is saying, now you know. And the next minute I was back in my body, and the medic had turned around and thrown the Jeep into gear and was taking off. At this time I was, there was no fear. The fear was gone. There was no pain. It was just a very, very calmness, a serenity, very serene. Everybody else around me, the medic, my friend, they were all very excited and uptight. We got to the main medical dispensary at the barracks, and everybody was going berserk at the time. I was very calm. They got me into the emergency room and began working on me. But all during this time, everybody was very, very upset, and I was very calm. I still didn't realize whether I was going to live or die, but at this point, it didn't matter. And the rest of it was the medical helicopter came and picked me up, and they flew me into Würzburg General Hospital, where they did the regular medical emergency treatment. And, quite an experience.
I think that's obvious, Glenn, from your feelings right now, and this is several years later. Can you tell me, did you try to tell the medical staff or people right after what had happened to you?
Well, Diane, what had happened was that this has been 17 years, and I've had a lot of time to think about it and to go back over it. It isn't until just recently, within the last 2 years, that I've been able to really put things in perspective. You might say for a long time I've been running continually without stopping to think about this, because it is very, very emotional, Diane, to have this happen to you.
There's no doubt in your mind, as some people have said previously, then it wasn't a dream, it happened, it was real for that moment.
No.
And obviously 17 years later it's still real.
No.
And very intense.
Diane, it is so fantastic. When I hear people say God spoke to me, and they throw it off as just something that happened, it's not like that. Because when it happens, you are connected at that very instant to creation, to everything, and you realize it. It's not a hallucination.
I think that I remember you telling me you did try to talk to someone in the hospital. How did they respond to that?
It dawned on me what had happened. Actually came back to me, and I realized that I had actually had a conversation with God. And it has just overwhelmed me. I got up to go down to the nurse's station because, you know from experience that they're the ones that you look for support. And I got down there, and I went to the nurse, and she realized Dr. Krakow, or Nurse Krakow, Lieutenant Krakow, looked at me and said, "What's wrong?" And I opened up my mouth to tell her, and apparently it all tried to come out at once because I made no sense to her, and she realized I was having a breakdown. They immediately got another syringe of Demerol and sedated me. The next morning I came to, and they immediately took me down to the psychiatrist's office. And he said, "Well, what happened?" And I told him, well, I woke up and started talking to him. I remember telling him what had happened. And he listened to me and said, well, he just listened at this point. Looking back on it, I can see, how skeptical he must have felt. Of course, he spoke to God, which is, this happens to a lot of people. The skepticism comes up. And nothing happened. Nothing. They did nothing to understand.
Can you tell me how you think your views differed, or your behaviors, how they changed after this?
Well, my feelings were that I was connected to everything. When I had my vision, Diane, and I was shown the meaning of life, I was literally shown everything. I was shown. I've told people, and they, skepticism a lot about what it was like. It's very, very, very hard to put into words. I literally felt that I was shown everything in the world, everything in the universe, and how it fits together, and how we continue. And when I came back, I felt that I loved everybody. I loved everybody around me. I loved the trees. I felt a part of it. But there was this wall. I was in a human body. I was a spirit that lives forever in a human body that lives for only so many years. Upon coming back, I was confronted by Fort Sam Houston, the people at Fort Sam, all the young men who'd been through a war. There were thousands of them, and many of them were maimed. And all I could remember for sure, Diane, is that I was very overwhelmed over the hate and the anger and the pain that was in this world. And I was under I was laboring under many different things at the point.
And still a young man.
Being a young man at 19 years old and seeing the carnage of a war, and coming back from a near-death experience to where God shows you how much love there is. And I could not understand. It was very barbaric to me. My friends couldn't understand me. None of them could understand what was happening. All I knew was that at the time that I was being very brutalized by what I was seeing. Because how could anybody do this? How can anybody have a war and kill each other?
You were out of the army?
Oh yeah,
they had discharged you when you came back?
They had discharged me. And I was just overwhelmed by a lot of it. Mm-hmm. Everywhere that I turned, I wanted companionship and brotherhood. And everywhere I turned, there were walls. Everywhere. There were people that, I wanted to reach out and hug people and be with them. And nobody wanted this.
Or understood it, probably.
Or understood it. I didn't understand it myself at the time. I just felt like I was connected to humanity, and humanity wasn't connected to me.
If you could give a message to experiencers or to healthcare professionals to help other experiencers as yourself, what would it be?
Diane, I'd have to say that when something like this happens to you, the best thing that people can do is to not patronize you, to just accept you for who you are, and that you're a human being, and that you've had an experience that is out of this world, literally. Don't hide it. tell the people, they need to know what happened to you, and you need to tell them so that you can understand it better and become more comfortable with it.